My name is Matt Faiello, and I'm a technical marketing engineer with the Cisco UCS business unit. I want to take some time and explain and demonstrate the process of converting a local service profile in a typical UCS domain to a global service profile in UCS Central. You might ask why I would want to do this. The answer is you don't have to perform these conversions to use UCS Central. There's still a lot of utility in using UCS Central as a centralized dashboard for faults in inventory, and also a single consistent source for setting operational policies across your domains. You may decide it's best for your organization to keep local service profiles as local domain objects and simply leverage UCS Central and global service profiles for anything new coming online in your environment. There's a lot of flexibility. However, there are some compelling reasons for having everything global in UCS Central. Certainly, global service profiles can have inter-UCS domain mobility, the freedom to move from one UCS domain to another. Another reason is the simplification and reduction of OpEx and the likely reduction of policies, templates, and local objects that need to be managed in each domain. With a global infrastructure, there's simply less to manage. For those that are interested in converting, I will walk you through a straightforward 9-step process that allows for upfront planning and pre-staging to minimize the downtime of a blade or server. As you are aware, there are no automatic conversions of a local service profile to a global service profile. Perhaps one day the magic easy button will exist, but the process I am going to show and demonstrate will allow for the organized and simplified conversion. My demonstration will leverage a short UCS Central Powertools script to perform global ID swaps, but in reality the entire process could be scripted. My script is rather short, and this allows for even the most novice users to understand the process. Basically, if everything is done in advance, then the blade and server will only be down for about 5 minutes, so you can easily leverage existing maintenance windows to perform the swap. Okay, so we have a PowerPoint here showing our 9 steps to convert a local service profile to a global service profile. And we can see here that in step 1, we're going to document pool IDs, policies, VLANs, vSANs, templates of our local service profiles. So the importance here is to capture the current state of everything so that we can then use that information, of course, and then build out our global infrastructure. Okay, so what you see before you is a UCS domain, and we're actually using a recently upgraded domain. It's running the 3.1.1 Bravo version of our firmware. And this is the HTML5 user interface for that. We can see that we have a local service profile, L14-UCS-Hyperv2. We have a couple VHBAs, one on the A side, one on the B side, leveraging vSAN 141, vSAN 142. We have a couple VNICs, ETH0 and ETH1, both using VLAN 248. We can see that we have a unique identifier here. And what I've also done is I've also brought up a KVM. So this is the KVM. We can see that we have a server booted up here. And if we go to the properties, we can actually see the different things that are part of that service profile. So there is our unique identifier. And we need to capture all this information. If we go over to our storage tab, our VHBAs, we can see that we have the worldwide port names for each of the VHBAs. We also have our worldwide node name. So once again, we're going to capture all this information. I'm going to click over on the network tab, and we can see that we have our MAC addresses defined for ETH0 and ETH1. So basically, this is all about capturing the current state. So we want to make sure that we have all these identifiers accounted for. And what I've done is I've actually basically copied and pasted everything into a notepad for this specific example so that we have this information at our fingertips. Okay, so once we have completed documenting all the IDs, policies, VLANs, vSANs, templates of our local service profiles, then we can move on basically to step 2, in which we will recreate all this infrastructure basically up to the global service profiles in UCS Central. Okay, now that we've documented everything in with our local service profiles, we can move on to building out the infrastructure within UCS Central. So I'm showing an instance of the latest version of UCS Central 1.4.1a, and I'm going to save the time of actually going through and building everything. I'm assuming you can do that, but we will be showing basically different things that make up our global infrastructure. So certainly, I'll go ahead and show you the UUID pool that was constructed. We actually are leveraging the exact same prefix and suffix block, okay, because I want everything to match on the global side is I have on the local side. So I want my IDs to actually be a one-for-one swap. So there's my UUID. I've recreated the global MAC pool, making sure that my fourth octet there of 14, the fifth octet of A1 is maintained. I'm going to show the B side. In our example, there was 2 different MAC pools. Okay, one for the A side, one for the B side. So here again, the fourth octet is 14. The fifth octet is B1. Here's my worldwide no name pool. So I've maintained the exact same format for my worldwide no name pool. Here is my worldwide port name pool, and like the node name, I've kept the same format. So these PNs will be exactly like what's in the VHBAs, assigned to the VHBAs in the local service profile. And the all-important boot policy here. Okay, so this is critical. We are booting to SAN, so I've captured the exact same LUN IDs and target initiators to boot to SAN. And something interesting here, actually I love this capability of the UCS Central that was first introduced in version 1.3, and this is called the ID Universe. So actually it makes it very beneficial to understand completely the state of every single ID that is in your infrastructure. So as long as you register your UCS domains to UCS Central, you're going to get a complete end-to-end accountability of every single ID in your infrastructure. So this is a very, very valuable tool that before this would have had to been done manually, perhaps with spreadsheets. And this is much more accurate. So I'm actually going to go filter, and I want to filter on a particular MAC address that I'll be using. The Cisco OUI, of course. And I believe it's 14 A1, and we're going to look at 14 A101. Okay, and we can see that it is in use and duplicate. So this is the status that I would expect for this particular ID. Okay, so it is in use. It's in use in a local service profile. That's the existing local service profile we have in our UCS domain. but there's also a duplicate, meaning there's two instances of it. So it not only exists in a local MAC pool in that UCS domain, but it's also existing in our global MAC pool. So this is fine. This is what's normal. We're creating an overarching global MAC pool of the same IDs, okay, and then we'll simply be swapping the IDs around, okay. So this is a good way to prove the status of any particular ID in your infrastructure. So let's go back to our dashboard, and we can see that we have already a template here that we can use, a global service profile template. I wanted to point out a couple things also now that we're doing this exercise. If I go and and look at my VLANs, I can see that I have the VLAN that I'm going to be using, 248. But notice I've changed the name. Okay, I put a G dash in front of it. It's very important that if you're in a mixed environment with local objects and global objects in UCS domains, global objects in UCS Central, it's very important that you establish unit name uniqueness on VLANs, vSANs, any policies, anything that would basically get instantiated down, globally down during an association of a global service profile. So please consider using a G dash or some other naming convention to differentiate. You'd want to do this with your vSANs as well. Of course, any policies, templates, things like that. So let's go ahead and let's craft a service profile from template. I'm going to select my organization. I just want one profile, and basically I'm going to kind of leverage the same name, but I'm going to put a G in front of it. Now, it's true, it's going to put a 1 on the end of this, and what I'm going to do is simply rename once I've done this. So let's go look for that guy. There's our service profile. I really don't want that to be called 2.1. I'm going to rename it. Okay, so we've effectively renamed our global service profile. So we've created a new service profile from template, but also, as we would expect, we've actually gone out and we've grabbed new IDs from those global pools. You can't grab the same ID if it's in use. Okay, so that would violate a principle of UCS and how UCS works. So we've grabbed new IDs, which of course are the wrong IDs. But in our process, there'll be a time at which we delete the local service profile that exists down on the domain. And by doing so, it frees up all the identifiers that have been consumed by that local service profile. It puts them back into their pools, makes them available. Once they're available, then we can simply use the script that I'll show you to switch the IDs. Okay, and then simply associate the global service profile down to the domain. Okay, now that we've actually recreated all of our IDs, policies, VLANs, vSANs, templates, and global service profiles in UCS Central, we can move on to the next step, which is we're going to basically gracefully shut down the server that contains that local service profile. And then we'll also disassociate that local service profile from the server. So the next sequence will actually do two steps. We'll shut down the server, and then we'll disassociate the local service profile. Okay, now back in our demo environment, we'll actually go to the HTML5 UI of the UCS domain. And since we already have a KVM launched, we'll bring up that KVM. Actually going to gracefully shut this down. Okay, so now that we've shut down our server, I'm going to close out of this KVM. We're going to lose it anyways here in the next step because we're basically going to disassociate our local service profile. Notice that we're using chassis 1, blade 3. So let's go ahead and disassociate the service profile. Okay, this service profile is now free and clear while we allow the blade to actually clean up and go back to an initial state. But we're really at the point now where we have disassociated the local service profile, and we can move on to actually deleting the service profile. Okay, so we're back to our process steps here. We've completed step 3, which was gracefully shut down the server with the local service profile. We've disassociated the local service profile, and now we're ready to delete the local service profile. This is a critical step in our process because by deleting this local service profile, we basically restore those IDs that we want to use again in our global service profile. We restore them back to their pools. So basically we go from being in use, okay, to available, and that's a critical step. Okay, back in our demo environment, we are ready to delete this local service profile, which restores the IDs back to their pools, respective pools, and makes them available. I'm simply going to right-click on that service profile, and if we scroll down, we can see there's an option to delete. Confirm the delete. And as such, I'm going to go ahead and pop over to UCS Central. I'm going to go to my dashboard. And actually, I'm going to bring up ID Universe again. I'm going to actually look at my MAC address. And as an example, we're going to go back to that same MAC address. And this is the one MAC address that was previously in use, and we can see that it's still a duplicate because it exists in a global MAC pool that we created here, but also at the local UCS domain MAC pool, but it's available. It's no longer in use, and the reason for that is because we deleted the local service profile, and ID Universe has updated accordingly. We now have completed step 5. We've deleted our local service profile, which restored the allocated IDs back into their respective pools. And now we're ready to execute the short Powertools script that I will show you to swap the IDs. So basically, we have a new global service profile with new IDs, but they're the wrong IDs. So we're going to modify that global service profile with the script, exchanging the wrong IDs for the proper IDs from the corresponding local service profile that we just deleted. Okay, so now we have our global service profile that has allocated fresh new IDs from the available pools, and of course now we're in the process or the step of actually converting these IDs to the right ones, the ones from the local service profile that we deleted. So basically what I've done here is just to refresh, we've documented all the IDs from the local service profile that we deleted. By deleting the service profile, we've put these IDs back in their pools, so now they're available versus in use, so we can consume these IDs. And what we'll do is we'll actually use a script here. This is UCS Central Powertools, and I'm leveraging a UCS Central transaction, which is a more efficient way of passing multiple commands to the API. So I'm basically starting my transaction, and then I'm including all the following commands. I'm going out and grabbing my org. I'm grabbing the service profile, and of course we need to modify this for the appropriate service profile. Okay, and we'll do that down here as well. Okay, so I'm grabbing the service profile. I'm using a modify present argument with the following global g-test-uuid to actually swap the correct UUID in. I'm grabbing this global service profile again, and I'm changing each of the virtual PCIe devices, my ETH0, ETH1, my FC0 and FC1 for my VHBAs with their corresponding fabrics, of course, and their corresponding IDs that I wish to switch to. I'm also swapping the worldwide node name ID, and then finally completing the transaction. So now I can simply copy this and let's bring up Power Tools. Now I've already logged in to UCS Central Server with the connect-UCS Central command, but I can also test that. Make sure I'm properly logged in, and now I'm ready to execute that script. So right click, paste. Okay, I can see most of it scrolled off the screen, but I can see right here that I have my new UUID. I have the status of modified, so that's good. I can go to my global service profile. I can see that that has changed. I can see the 9F. I can see that the worldwide node name has changed to 0108. And I can go down into my actual connectivity and check ETH0. MAC address 14A101, that's correct. ETH1 14B101, that's correct. FC0, the worldwide port name 140101, and this one should be 140102. It is. So we verified those are all correct. I can also go to the XML API managed object browser called Visore. So basically, if you go to the IP address of your UCS Central Server /visore.html and log in as administrator, you can browse through the managed object list. Now, what I've done is I browsed to the UUID that we were wanting to switch to, and I can see now that it's assigned to single. So this is another way of going into the managed object browser and actually verifying that these IDs are assigned. Okay, so now that we've made our changes to our global service profile, we're ready to go ahead and go to the next step, which is actually associate this global service profile down to the server and then boot the server. Okay, back to our process here. We have actually completed step 6, which is using the Powertools script to swap the IDs for the global service profile. And we've actually also verified those IDs are the correct ones. So now we're ready to associate the global service profile down to a given server, designated server. Okay, so now we'll associate the global service profile to the server. And I'm going to pick a B200 M3. We can see that things are progressing nicely here. Let's go over to our domain. We can see that we have the global service profile that has been um, copied down to the UCS domain. And we'll allow this to complete association. Okay, we have success. We're associated. We can see that our UUID is in fact 9F. Let's go over to the storage tab here, specifically the VHBAs. We can see that we have the correct worldwide node name, 0108. We can see that we have the correct worldwide PNs, worldwide port names, 0101, 0102. And moving over to the network tab, we can see that we have the correct MAC addresses, A101, B101. Launch the KVM and boot the server. All right, so we have our KVM fully up, and let's go ahead and boot the server. Okay, so we can see that our server is booting up. Um, You might have noticed I'm only actually booting off the B side, so the A side path was not found. That's known. This is our lab, so we only have an active path on the B side. But I think you get the message. You see the process of how we can take a local service profile and capture basically the IDs from that local service profile. Delete the local service profile, recreate everything on the UCS Central side globally, craft global service profiles with new IDs. We don't have any choice. They're going to go out there and grab new IDs. Then simply use a UCS Central Powertools Script, a very easy script that pretty much anybody can use, and swap those IDs. Then send that global service profile down to the blade and then boot to that boot line. So I hope you enjoyed this presentation. I hope you learned some things about the conversion of a local service profile to global service profile. And I just want to stress the point: if you do everything up front, do the planning, that server really doesn't have to be down too long. Basically, you're gracefully shutting down the server. You're taking away the local service profile. You're deleting the local service profile. You're running the script on its corresponding global service profile that's already out there waiting to go because you've done your preparatory work. You swap the IDs, and then you're pushing the global service profile down and then booting the server. So, about 5 minutes per server, I would expect. And once again, hope you enjoyed this presentation. Take care.